A new generation of consumers has emerged across Bharat and they demand quality, choices, and better consumer experiences. It's this aspiration that promises to be the engine of the Vikasit Bharat dream. For brands, it's a transformative moment when their quest for profits in urban centers is overwhelmed by the lure of the immense Bharat opportunity. It's changing the way they build and sell products and services. From design to manufacturing, advertising, and even after-sales services, the quest to win the hearts and minds of Bharat has forced brands to change their way of doing business, to reach and acquire customers, and in many cases, their identity itself. In due course, they're changing communities across Bharat too, bringing greater awareness, nurturing new consumer preferences, and energizing markets for products and services across Bharat. You're watching us here on another special episode of SeedToScale and CNBC TV18 present Decoding Bharat. We're here today to discuss how the emergence of an aspirational consumer class across Bharat as we know it has the potential to change business and society forever. With a panel of esteemed leaders, visionaries, and experts on a discussion which we call Untapped Opportunity, Bharat-first brands. Joining me today are Shashank Srivastava, Member Executive Committee of Maruti Suzuki, Saket Todi, the Executive Director, Lux Industries, and Prayank Swaroop, who is the partner at Accel. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining in. Let's go straight to Mr. Srivastava first. Mr. Srivastava, Maruti, first up, how do you look at it? Is it a Bharat-first brand, which was then going premium via all the other offerings that it had? Or do you think it was India first, then percolated into the bottom of the pyramid, as they say?
While Maruti Suzuki started off with large sales in urban areas, as is expected from a product category like cars, we have seen in the recent past the share of sales of automobiles in the rural areas, or the Bharat, if we can call it that, is actually been increasing dramatically. In fact, I was looking at statistics from 2008 onwards. Every year, except the year of 2019-20 financial year, we have seen growth as far as passenger vehicle is concerned, whereas there has been 4 years in the urban areas where there has been a negative growth. And always the rural growth has been higher than the urban growth. So that's probably because you have a much more aspirational India or Bharat, which is building up. So I think it's a big area for automobiles, and it's going to get better as we see better infrastructure and more car penetration in rural areas.
Saket, Lux Industries is a brand, it reeks of Bharat. Can you tell us what exactly are the key drivers and opportunities for growth in Bharat? And also when you're talking about Bharat-first brands, how do you go about optimizing the potential reach of each brand and the aspiration? How do you view Bharat-first brands basically?
If you go in Europe, consumer psyche from Serbia to Germany to Portuguese to Ireland, the consumer psyche is different. Similarly, that the same trend is there in Bharat as well. From West Bengal to Gujarat to Maharashtra to Punjab to Karnataka, the consumer psyche and the consumer demands are different out here. So we require a variety of products, firstly, in the country. There has been different brands across our verticals which are focusing to different consumer segments. I would say in India that how many are the taxpayers in the country, which is approximately around 3 to 4 crores. So I would say that they are living in India, and the remaining 137 crores out of the 140 crores are living in Bharat. But all these 140 crore people require innerwear to wear on a daily basis. You would not see a single man in the country who is moving daily without an innerwear. And by giving our different brands at different level prices, we are very fortunate that we reach to approximately 250,000 retailers across the country.
Prayank, from an investor standpoint, this is something that I wanted to ask you. The first one is, how do you assess the value potential of a Bharat-first brand? And when we speak about Bharat, there's already always an influx of, a lot of digital players coming in, more citizens still entering the digital mainstream, also a lot of category penetration increasing, how does one, estimate the total addressable market of Bharat, so to say?
See, typically, if you look at, let's say, the public market to GDP ratio in a country, it is in the range of 0.5 to 1:1. So if India is going to be a 10 trillion economy, essentially, and we are 4.5 right now, another 6 trillion is going to get created in the public markets in India. Now, of that 6 trillion, we believe a significant chunk is going to come from the Bharat opportunity, right? So at a very high level number, even if you take 10-20%, we are thinking of 600 to 1.2 billion, 600 billion to 1.2 trillion dollars of GDP and public market value getting created from Bharat kind of companies. And obviously, Maruti and Lux Industries are great examples of that, right? So a lot of the new age companies are going to take value and get created from the new digital channels, and Bharat consumer is accepting those channels. The penetration is increasing. In fact, a lot of redefining of a new stack of e-commerce, a new stack of fintech, a new stack of edtech will get created for Bharat itself. The price points at which Flipkart and Amazon operate might not be the same price points for Bharat, and we are already starting to invest from Accel, as well as a lot of startups are coming and investing for those consumers in the tier 2, tier 3 towns and rural towns with the new models, essentially.
Right. Mr. Srivastava, I have to ask you this. As an industry leader, as a doyen, how do you go about addressing the customer in Bharat? How is that different from a customer in India? And what exactly are the tenets of a Bharat brand versus a brand for India? What special or what different do you have to do?
I believe most people talk of Bharat in terms of tier 2, tier 3, smaller cities, villages, etc., whereas the larger cities are thought of as India. But within these geographies, there would be many places where the psychographics can be quite different. So you have a Bharat in India, and there is also an India in Bharat. So that is, and the reason why we generally speak of Bharat in geographical terms is because a lot of people in that geography are on an aspirational scale, little different from what is there in the cities. But mind you, these are not mutually exclusive. Even if you look at from a geographical point of view, they are, but from a brand perspective, they are not. And therefore, to the question that how are the two different? Well, there are many differences, and if you look at purely from a geographical point of view, you would assume that the nature of your network, like cars, for example, we see a much more personalized selling as far as the rural areas is concerned. So we generally speak of rural urban rather than Bharat India. You have the criteria of purchase also a little different. For example, in most parts of Bharat, the criteria of purchase is not as much as cutting edge design, as much as it is about fuel efficiency or the value for money. So there are these differences which you have to address. So really speaking, you will have to clearly appeal to the different psychographics rather than just geography when you define brands in terms of India and rural. The network strategy is different, the communication strategy is different, and in fact, the emphasis by the salespeople about certain or the marketing communication about certain aspects of your products would also be different.
Saket, what is more difficult? Is it easier to go down the curve or is it more difficult to premiumize? How do you position yourself as a house of brands to different kinds of people then?
If you are a mass brand, it will be difficult always for you to go to a premium category. And if you are a premium brand, you won't be able to move towards the mass category because you don't have the capabilities to produce the product at that price point. So the grass is always greener on the other side. But I would say that there's a huge opportunity in Bharat, and the population size and the demand, especially in our industry, it is huge. And if we are able to tap to that population, like even 10% of it, I think so, in the world, we can be the number one player. We all wear a innerwear, but for innerwear, anyone here who's sitting will think only of two products, a lower and an upper. But actually, we produce more than 140 varieties of product, and which is spread across the Bharat. Uh, rural area in Punjab would require a different kind of product, a different fit, which would not be accepted at all by a person sitting in Maharashtra. So there is a huge variety of product, and we always need to continuously innovate with our product as well. If you are stagnant, then you're over.
All right. If you're stagnant, then you're over. I'll ask you all to hold on to your thoughts. We'll just take a very short break, come back, continue our conversation about Bharat First brands and what it takes to succeed in Bharat. Welcome back. You're watching us here on SeedToScale and CNBC TV 18 present Decoding Bharat. We are discussing an untapped opportunity in Bharat First brands. Well, Mr. Srivastava, Saket, before going into break, was talking about how they need to innovate. There has to be, grass is greener on whatever side the opposite side that you're on. If you're a luxury brand, you would want to go to the masses. If you're a mass brand, then you would always aspire the premium. You guys have managed to somewhat successfully do that with Maruti and then eventually Nexa. What would you think are the key steps that people need to take to go either up or down the ladder? Would you have a rule of thumb or would you have any checklist here?
Yeah, so one of the rule of thumbs, of course, is to realize that your existing brand image is very, very sticky. So you need to work on a lot of factors if you want to change that image. For example, Maruti Suzuki's brand was clearly a value for money brand, low maintenance cost, high fuel efficiency, great reliability, and that is what the consumers wanted at some point. But then, as the aspiration level rose, you had a set of consumers who were wanting a higher aspirational product in terms of design, in terms of performance. So first of all, you have to work on the product itself, and then not to forget that there are consumers whose priority and whose decision making is dependent on different criteria. And for that, you will need to be very, very closely connected with the consumers, observing them, observing the trends which are there in the market. And it could be different for different people. You could have in rural areas an absolutely different requirement and aspiration. I'll give you an example. Last year, I went to a place called Vishnupur. Vishnupur is a small village, and there was this rural event. And I have been all my life attending rural events, and I go to these rural in Rajasthan, in MP, in Bihar, Jharkhand, etc. So you would expect some sort of a traditional dances or some type of crowd. But there I saw everybody. It was a English music which was playing, and people in the dressing was absolutely Western. But they were rural in terms of their per capita income, but the aspiration level was absolutely different. So my first and the only thumb rule is to know the customer and to know what priority they attach to your product and the type of, and that should determine all your marketing actions, including communication. It is actually better to go the digital route, whereas the general thought and the general wisdom is that those areas are probably addressed by wall paintings or such. Which is not correct. And vernacular, for example, is today very big. So people often make a mistake of even in cities to use only English, whereas attaching it with aspiration. Whereas it could be now that aspiration and vernacular, the use of vernacular is absolutely disconnected. So there are a lot of things which we have to take, and absolutely the first thumb rule is know your customer.
Prayank, can Bharat First brands also expand into urban areas without losing their essence? We've been speaking about what the end game for a lot of these Bharat First brands would be. Would they be lapped up by a lot of these larger players, or would they be big enough to scale across the country and across all the psychometrics that our earlier panelists have been speaking about as well? What do you think would be some of the key tenets here?
Typically, most times when brands build companies, they are thinking of the Sasta Sundar Tikau customer in Bharat. And as we just pointed out in this conversation, there is aspirational Bharat as well. There is a Bharat, there are people. So those brands who go after the aspirational Bharat consumers can definitely come to the more metropolitan and the urban customer. And they have to figure out, maybe they have to come up with a newer brand or newer subset of a brand, higher ticket price points, and more value add than they can give in the rural customers. But it is possible. The biggest problem with a brand, though, in my view, is that there is a narrative around a brand. So how do you change that? Like, how do you take it from being just a rural brand to a more modern, more aspirational brand? Is a big marketing thing which they need to which founders need to figure out. Uh, and obviously the supply chain also needs to change, right? So but most important is, first, how do you change your positioning in the market, that people should look at you not just as a somebody who's middle income or lower income using you, versus going to more higher aspirational parts. That's the first part. And of course, the distribution platforms of reach of Lux Industries or a Maruti is something to envy for, right? So you need to figure that out. And maybe the digital native startups can figure that out with the presence of Amazon and Flipkart and Swiggy, Instamart, and the like, right? So I think that's definitely doable.
Mr. Srivastava, for a person whose first car is Maruti, how do you motivate them for the next few cars to be Maruti as well? As they grow in their aspiration to society, some would upgrade to some other brands and thereafter go to luxury cars, etc. So how do you keep customer stickiness across all their stages of life?
First of all, the product portfolio has to expand so that people, when they are wanting to upgrade to a new car, they should have something in your portfolio to look forward to. Be abreast of the technology in the product, which is essential, and we have tried to do that as well. And third is, you need to expand geographically also, and here I emphasize the geography rather than the psychography. For example, if you want to penetrate into the smaller areas where you have a lower per capita income, then you would need to spread geographically. And as you know, in India, there are about 640,000 villages. There is a Maruti sold in about, at least one Maruti sold in about 410,000 of them.
Wow.
Which means there's still about 230,000 villages where there is no Maruti. So the geographic spread has to be there. And in order to make it profitable for your franchises to be there at present in smallest area, you have various things. For example, in Bharat or rural areas, if you look at the distant smaller villages, you would need more personalized selling. You need influencers in the local area. So typically in a village, if you want to sell vehicles, you don't approach the final consumer who might be a teacher or a farmer or something. You approach the village sarpanch, because
Right.
he says that, so he's the influencer. And that means that you need, that's a good thing, because you need to have more feet on the ground. We have, for example, almost 20,000 what we call rural sales executives who are going around, so that even if the infrastructure may not be there, a large infrastructure which a car showroom normally has, we still have people who are known to those people, and there is some sort of a confidence that these people are around, and that inspires confidence to buy a high value product. Also remember one more thing which I just wanted to bring to the notice of everybody. Indian smaller areas, if you call it Bharat, geographically, if I take it for a moment, then there is a huge opportunity, because especially in cars where you have transportation requirement going up whenever economy goes up, our public transport not so good, personal transport is important. There is a very low penetration. Our penetration, by the way, is only 32 cars per 1,000 people. In UP and in MP it is 2. In Bihar it is about 7, 8. In Rajasthan it is 12, 13. There is a very long way to go. Delhi, Chandigarh, for example, is 400 per 1,000, which is the highest in the country. And remember that there is opportunity in financing also. 80% of the sale of automobile is through financing. There is one very big thing which you might be very interested to know, that earlier it was thought that penetration of finance in smaller rural areas will not be large. Actually, statistics show it is larger than in the urban areas. And that is made possible. Of course, the ticket size could be different, but that's something which is really encouraging us, because we can now look at the rural areas, or if you equate it with Bharat, as a great opportunity overall for all manufacturers, whether it is cars or any other product.
Saket, what about you? How do you prevent a person going away from Lux to Jockey to all the other brands? And what keeps people loyal to your brand?
See, in our category, brand is very important. So that is the reason we have different brands for different consumers. For a mass category, we have a brand called Lux Venus. And if you want to move ahead of the ladder, if you want to move above the ladder, the next category is cozy. So there we emphasize more on cozy rather than Lux, but it is manufactured by the same company, Lux Industries. So you get that assurance that the quality is perfect. And then after that, the next brand for us is On. On is again a premium wear brand which is above cozy, where the people want to migrate themselves and escalate from a mid-premium brand to a premium brand, then they can move up to On. And after On, we are again developing a new brand, which by the next year mid, we will be able to launch it. And that will be another brand which will be a level before Calvin Klein or a level above Jockey. So in our category, brand is very important. Features are there, technology is very less in use in it, but brand showcasing is of utmost important, because a white vest is a white vest is a white vest. 50 years back also it was a plain white vest which our grandfather used to wear, and now what we are wearing is also a same white vest. But there has been continuous innovation to improve the quality. But brand matters a lot. You need to show on the chest whether it is a Calvin Klein or a Gucci or a Lux Venus or a Lux Cozy.
No, Priyank, let's give you the last word. As a person who is in the business of investing in these Bharat-first brands, what would your advice to entrepreneurs be who are looking to tap into this opportunity? Your final word.
Yeah, I think it has been well said. We need first start with the customer, understand the psychographic, understand the niche you are going after. Uh, that is point one. Point two, then what are the unmet needs they have, or is there a discerning need which is not met by them? For example, for me, the discerning need which is not met is, I want clothes which make me lose fat, right? If maybe hopefully Lux Industries can build it, or while driving my car, I can get a massage done. Maruti folks can do it, so that'll be great. So that's an unmet need for me. I think so solve for that unmet need, then figure out how you're going to position yourself and build distribution in front of the customer. So marketing for positioning, so that the customer understands your value proposition well. And then finally building the distribution network, which will take time, effort, and money. And that's where we are here, like Accel invests in startup companies just for that reason. So yeah, so that's the 4-step process.
All right, so the next few Maruti cars may have massagers on the seats and maybe some fat burners in Saket's products going forward as well. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining in, being a part of this discussion. It was indeed an illuminating discussion on the future of Bharat-first brands. In a way, their rise will mirror the rise of India and Bharat as a whole itself. With that, we wrap up on this edition of Seed to Scale and CNBC TV 18 present Decoding Bharat. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.